Before you listen, if you enjoy the stories and want to hear more, then please consider subscribing. Most of you listening aren't subscribed, so please take this time to subscribe. Turn on notifications so you'll never miss a story and be the first to hear. You'll also be supporting me. Thank you. Ah, man, you won't believe the wild vacation I had in Athens just this summer. So my family and I were all excited, right? This is supposed to be the trip of a lifetime, classic Greece, the Parthenon, Zeus, and all that jazz. We'd spent an ungodly amount of time choosing the perfect hotel. Nothing too flashy, just something cozy and rich in local vibes. Finally, we settled on this 4-star joint that looked like it had been plucked right out of a fairy tale. It had charm, character, the whole enchilada. The hotel was a mix of old and new, with antique designs and architecture blended with modern comforts. Absolutely sublime. Anyway, we moved in, all geared up for the epic tales we'd have to share once we got back. If only we knew. Now, if you know anything about me, you know I'm a night owl. Staying up late is practically my thing. So the first night in Athens, everybody zonked out from the long flight. I'm there wide awake, just soaking in the ambience. And then, out of nowhere, right at the stroke of 2 a.m., I hear this woman crying. Not a simple sob, but the heart-wrenching sound of pure sorrow, piercing through the calm silence of the Greek night. Freaked me out, to be honest, but hey, it's a hotel, right? People have their own dramas. Brushing it off as some late-night romantic fiasco, I ignored it, telling myself I didn't want to get tangled in someone else's troubles. Managed to fall asleep, eventually, but the sound stayed with me. It was just too real, too raw. The next night, same scenario. Me up late. Everyone else asleep, and there it was again. The same crying. Same time, same sorrow, same chill running down my spine. This time, I couldn't brush it off. I mean, I've seen enough movies to know when things start getting spooky, right? With an alarm gnawing at me, I decided to check it out. Left the comfort of my room, headed down the eerily silent corridors towards the haunting sound. The crying was coming from outside, so I cautiously stepped into the cool night air. The garden was bathed in moonlight, casting long shadows that danced with the whispering wind. It was almost enchanting, if not for the wailing that ripped through the quiet, creating a stark contrast between the peaceful visuals and distressing audio. I looked around, expecting to find some distraught woman, but there was nothing. Nothing but the weeping echoes that seemed to be coming from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. It was chilling. I felt this sense of dread creeping up my back, making me question if I was in some sort of nightmare. But there I was, wide awake in the middle of an Athens night, listening to phantom cries. This went on for every night of our stay like some morbid ritual. The crying became the dark underside to our otherwise sunny vacation. I mean, we were having a great time during the day, exploring the city, diving into the culture, the food, the history. But as the day faded and night approached, I'd feel this unease settling in, knowing what awaited me at 2 a.m. After hearing that woman crying for a couple of nights, I thought, hey, maybe the hotel folks know something. So one morning, I stroll up to the reception. The lady at the desk was all smiles, asking about our day, our plans, and how we're enjoying Greece. I played along, chatted about the yummy Greek salad, the fantastic weather, all the usual chit-chat. Then, with my best casual tone, I asked, hey, by the way, has anyone ever mentioned hearing a woman crying late at night, around 2 a.m. or so? Her smile froze for a second, and she looked at me like I'd grown 2 heads. I shrugged and explained what I'd been hearing every night. I could see her exchanging glances with the other staff, a bit of confusion, maybe a bit of worry in their eyes. After a bit of awkward silence, she finally said, sorry, sir, we haven't had any complaints like that before. But man, I couldn't let it go. I mean, these ghostly cries weren't exactly a small thing, right? I pushed a bit more, asked about any weird stories or incidents related to the hotel. But no matter what I asked, they just shrugged it off, looking more and more bewildered. Eventually, we left Athens, leaving behind the mysteries that shrouded our stay. The hotel remained in my memories, a beautiful paradox of delight and dread. The crying woman became a part of the tale we brought back, a spectral figure forever bound to our Greek vacation. The nights in Athens, they were beautiful, but under their beauty hid a haunting sorrow, an unseen tragedy that played out every night. Right at the stroke of 2 a.m., as much as I loved the days in Greece, The nights are what I'll never forget. To this day, I still wonder about that crying woman, her identity, her story. Maybe I'll never know, or maybe one day I'll stumble upon the truth. For now, all I have is a haunting memory and a tale to tell. Alright, so get this. The missus and I, we thought, why not spice things up a bit, right? So we decided to take this vacay to Spain, Madrid to be specific. Packed our bags, hopped on a plane, and before we knew it, we're soaking up the sun, sipping sangrias, and having the time of our lives. We picked this sweet little hotel in the heart of the city. Nice place, good vibes, super comfy rooms, just the perfect base for all our adventures. So far, so good, right? The first night, we're dead beat from all the traveling, so we hit the sack early. I'm just about drifting off to sleep when I hear this sound. Footsteps right outside our door. I think must be some late-night wanderer lost in the hallway. Then I hear the door handle jiggling like someone's trying to get in. Heart racing, I jump out of bed and rush to the door, but by the time I swing it open, the hallway's empty. Just echoes of my thumping heart in the stillness. Okay, weird, but whatever, right? People get mixed up with room numbers all the time. I let it slide and we get back to sleep. Night 2, and things go from weird to freaky. Again, those footsteps, the jiggling handle. The first thing I noticed was the soft, rhythmic creaking of the door. I could hear the door handle moving up and down, the squeak of the springs inside it. It wasn't a hurried movement, but rather this slow, methodical jiggle. It was almost like whoever was on the other side was trying to be careful, trying to open the door without making a sound. I remember feeling a cold wave of dread taking over me. You know, that adrenaline-fueled fear that prickles at your skin and makes your heart pound. In that moment, as the door handle continued to rattle, it felt like time was moving in slow motion. The sound seemed to get louder and louder until it was the only thing I could hear. My heart echoed the rhythm thumping wildly in my chest. Before I knew it, I was out of bed, my feet carrying me towards the door. It's one of those moments where you act on instinct without even really thinking about it. I was almost there when the rattling stopped. It was abrupt, like someone had flipped a switch, and suddenly all was quiet again. I swung the door open, ready to face whoever was trying to invade our space, but there was no one there. The hallway was quiet, the faint hum of the air conditioning the only sound disturbing the silence. But the chill of fear was still there, crawling up my spine. I stood there, peering into the dimly lit hallway, searching for any sign of the mysterious intruder, but there was nothing. Just the emptiness and the lingering echoes of the rattling door handle. Now we're out and about in the day, right? Taking in the sights, feasting on tapas, generally enjoying the city. When we get back to our room, though, things take a turn for the downright creepy. There's this letter on our bed. No envelope, no hotel logo. Just a piece of paper with 3 words that send chills down my spine. I'm watching you. I'm thinking this is just the staff messing with us, right? Some twisted idea of a joke. But when we bring it up with them, they're as baffled as we are. They even let us check the security cameras. We sit there, watching the footage of our room's entrance, fast-forwarding through hours of nothing. And that's exactly what we see. Nothing. No one entered our room the whole day. Man, I'm telling you that feeling, knowing you're being watched. It's downright terrifying. I'd take the ghostly footsteps and the jiggling door handle any day over this invasive feeling of being spied on. But who was doing this? And how? Days passed in a blur of sightseeing and dread, the joy of exploring Madrid tainted by the unsettling occurrences back at our hotel. It was like living a dual life, one in the day filled with the excitement of discovering a new city, and one in the night, an unnerving wait for the next unsettling incident. Okay, so we had a couple more days left in Madrid. But I won't lie, they were tinged with this nervous energy. I mean, we're in this beautiful city, and instead of fully enjoying it, I'm over here jumping at shadows and side-eyeing everyone. Despite the scare, we decided to stick it out. We tried to focus on the good stuff, the gorgeous sights, the amazing food, the vibrant culture, all that jazz. But let me tell you, coming back to the hotel room every evening, it felt like walking into a thriller movie. The moment we'd step in, I'd be scanning the room, looking for any sign of intrusion, my eyes instinctively drifting towards the bed half expecting another creepy note. The nights were worse. Every creak, every whisper of wind, every rustle would have me on edge, waiting for the footsteps, the rattling of the door handle. On our last day, we packed up our stuff, our minds filled with a weird mix of relief and worry. Relief because we were leaving the creepy experiences behind. Worry because we were leaving with so many unanswered questions. Who had been trying to open our door? Who had been watching us? Was it even a who or just a string of creepy coincidences? I guess we'll never know. A couple of years ago, I decided to go on a solo trip. I've always had this thing for old towns, places that are frozen in time. So I found this nice little town in Eastern Europe. Cobblestone streets, ancient buildings, the whole package. Now the town had this grand old hotel, which honestly looked more like a castle from the outside. It had this old world charm to it that instantly drew me in. So I checked in and got my room key. Up I went. My room was on the top floor, and man, the view was just breathtaking, overlooking the town square with the forest and mountains in the distance. Picture perfect, right? The first day went by without a hitch. I roamed around the town, took in the sights, and enjoyed some local delicacies. But the strange things started happening on the second day. I woke up and found some of my stuff moved around. My suitcase was open, clothes haphazardly strewn around. I thought maybe I had been careless the previous night, so I shrugged it off, tidied up, and went on my day. When I got back in the evening, the same thing had happened again. Only this time, it was worse. My clothes were not just thrown around, but they were also torn as if a wild animal had been at them. But the room was on the top floor, and the windows were locked from the inside, so there was no way an animal could have gotten in. I was definitely spooked now, but I convinced myself it was just some sort of weird prank or maybe a cleaning staff mishap. The next morning, things got weirder. I woke up to the sound of scratching. It seemed to be coming from inside the room, but I couldn't pinpoint where exactly. The scratching sounds would start, usually after midnight. I'd sat up in my bed, straining my ears to identify the source, but the sound seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. It echoed through the room, this grating, consistent scratch, 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 like someone etching into wood with a sharp tool. Each night, the scratching seemed to get louder, closer. One night, it sounded like it was coming from under the bed. I froze, my breath hitching in my throat as I mustered the courage to peek underneath. But there was nothing there, just darkness. Then there were the nights when the scratching seemed to come from inside the walls, a rapid, desperate scraping that sent creeps down my spine. I remember pressing my ear to the wall, the cold stone chilling me to the bone as I tried to make sense of the sounds. As if the scratching wasn't disturbing enough, there was the heavy breathing. It started a few nights into my stay. I woke up abruptly, the silence of the night broken by this raspy, labored breathing. The sound was so close, like someone was standing right next to my bed. I could almost feel the coldness of it against my skin. I'd jolt up, switching on the light, my eyes darting around the room. But there was nothing, just me in my bed. The breathing suddenly silenced, the room as it always was. Then there was the night when I felt something. Someone's, sitting at the end of the bed. I woke up to a sinking feeling like when someone heavy sits on a mattress. I could feel the weight of the bed dipping slightly. I lay there paralyzed with fear, my heart pounding in my chest. I finally found the courage to sit up, but again there was nothing there. Just an empty room, the silence echoing louder than ever. As the nights just kept getting worse. The scratching grew louder, the breathing closer. I'd wake up at odd hours, drenched in sweat. The weight at the end of the bed became a nightly occurrence, an unseen presence that haunted my dreams. The peace of the day would dissolve into the fear of the night, my quaint little hotel room transforming into a scene of horror. I'd spend my days anxiously awaiting the nightfall, each night worse than the previous one. Things continued to spiral from there. Every morning, I'd wake up to my belongings scattered or destroyed. The scratching sounds continued, sometimes in the day, sometimes at night, always untraceable. I tried to bring it up with the hotel staff, but without any proof they couldn't do much. I decided to investigate myself. I even set up my camera to record the room while I was out, hoping to catch the culprit, but the footage showed nothing unusual. The room remained as I left it, and yet when I'd return, it would be in disarray. Towards the end of my stay, things took a terrifying turn. One night, I woke up to the sound of heavy breathing. I could feel it right next to my ear, feel the coldness of it against my skin. I shot up, turned on the lights, but again, there was nothing. I couldn't ignore this strong feeling of dread. The inexplicable happenings, the invisible presence. It was like the room, The hotel was alive and toying with me. I couldn't wait for my trip to end. Finally, the day of my departure arrived. I packed my battered belongings and my relief through the roof. As I closed the door, I could have sworn I heard a low growl, like a territorial animal warning off an intruder. Thanks for listening in. If you like these stories and want to hear more, then please subscribe and like and support this new channel. We have more stories for you to listen to.